This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. My name is Priyanka Sagu, and I'm the Emeritus Advisor for Kubernetes 131 release team. Today is our part one mid-cycle retrospective meeting for Kubernetes 131 release cycle. Welcome, everyone. Before we get started, this meeting follows the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which comes down to be nice to each other, be friendly, nice, respectful to each other, and that is not just on the mic, also in the discussion, notes, and everywhere. With that, very quickly, we have some rules for this specific meeting today because we have a packed agenda and each agenda item will follow a discussion. So we'll try to keep the discussion to time box and move to the next item so that we can cover each item at least once. If required, we can revisit the items if we have more time, or based on how important every item is important, but how much discussion is required, we can uh, revisit them at the end of the call. So if you have any items, any plus minus, which is anything that you like during the release team so far, anything that you would like to be improved in the later part of the release team in next release cycles, feel free to add those items in the plus and minus sections. Anything else that you are working on, any action item that you have already taken, put them in the box at the bottom. Um, any discussion that we will have on all of the items, let's make sure that's respectful, that's solution oriented communication. We are not here to do a blameless shaming anyone for anything. Absolutely, it's just supposed to be a retrospective. Anything that did not work out, we'll try to find out some action item solution, or at least take a follow up on that after this call. um, Again, please respect the time boxes. We will try to keep the discussion of every agenda item time box to 5 minutes, but if required, we'll revisit. And if you have any concern during the meeting, I'll be the moderator for this call today. Please feel free to DM me on the chat or in Slack. I'll keep an eye there. With that, let's get started. So we have a few items from previous release. This is not just 130. I think there are a few items from there, from running from 128, 129, which is the, I think, the very first one. Check to see if the docs have been updated to reflect the change to the webinar format. I don't think this has. Can anyone add items to the list? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, anyone can add items to the list. I'll not take the name because I by mistake read a DM. Thank you for asking that. So our first item here is check to see if the docs have been updated to reflect the change the webinar format. It has not been done. Um, I will follow up with Cat and Grace. Grace is already assigned. Mark, I believe, is no longer active in the release team area right now, but I'll take an action item on myself to follow up with Cat and Grace. Angelos, you unmuted. Do you want to um, talk on this?
Angelos, we're getting a lot of really weird noises coming from your audio.
I think it's cool noise.
It is cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's very very Berlin.
Yeah.
And with that, I just saw Kat, you are on the call. Hello. So
I
I'm already following up with you. Maybe this is something we can do. I'm not sure what's the change in the webinar format. I remember Zender
I know
and
what it
Mark.
is. So
Okay.
you can assign that to me if it was assigned to somebody else and has not been done, because it's that it used to be the release webinar was just like 8 million slides of sitting there reading out the caps, and we don't do that anymore because it sucks.
It was
Hmm.
probably assigned to me originally because it was me and Mark were the first ones to do the new format. So if anyone wants to like throw a tomato at me or something, that's fine. I'll take it. Or if you want to like reassign it to me, that's fine too. I guess I can do the thing I originally agreed to do.
No, I think we all have those action items that we never were able to finish after our time in release team. So
It's
that's
like
okay.
a tradition, I think, at this point that
It
like
is.
after you finish leading a release, you flop on the floor like a pancake and shut out the world. And
Yeah,
I did that admirably. Cat, on the other hand, just continued to do things like a psychopath.
I know. I
Excuse
know. I
me.
need therapy. I need therapy. But we do have sub-project owners now. So these kinds of like action items that end up left over kind of won't fix style from previous releases. You can throw those at me and Grace. That is like part of our job, especially if they're like overarching changes that affect an entire team or are going to affect releases moving forward. That's a make it me and Grace's problem. So I already see something else in the agenda that I'm going to make my problem too. So
So I think we are good with the assignees for this one. And thank you, Kat. I've also put Grace's name there. Um, the next one is for Sriram, and I think Sriram, you are on the call. Do you want to go ahead with enhancements board automation? If there is any progress on that, or I think the first thing is, do we have any tracking issue for that?
Yeah, hey everyone. So the so actually I had like two issues and I got like mixed up between them. So enhancements board automation, I don't think we have a tracking issue right now. I'll get back and update the sheet on that if we have one. If not, I'll try to create one probably in SIG release because I had talked to Kirsten from the enhancements sub project and they had mentioned that the board itself is owned by the release team sub project and not the enhancements sub project. So whatever changes that we want to make to the board, we don't need to get a sign off from them. We just need to like only the release team has to be in consensus for that. So if there is no issue, I'll create one. And this is also something that I had added in the section for what we'll do differently in 132. So we are planning to like work on this, like me and the enhancement shadows are like planning to work on this once we are done with code freeze. Because mostly the enhancements team doesn't have any work at all after code freeze till the end of the release.
Yeah. I think we also discussed it at some point early during this cycle. This is definitely responsibility. The board and the enhancements
Mhm.
board is definitely the responsibility of release team and not the enhancement sub project. So we can definitely go ahead as release team enhancement sub team. Uh, go ahead with the automation on that. Um, I have assigned the action item of creating tracking issue to you. Before moving ahead to the next one, are we good on this item? Sorry, I did not ask for the previous one. And my screen share is stopped. Let me try again. Okay. Is it back now?
Yeah.
Yep, it's back.
yep.
Okay. Um, so I was on the second item. I just cross checking again. Are we good on this one to move ahead?
Yeah, once I create the tracking issue, like there are a few open PRs, I believe, to update the handbook and all. So I'll put all those together in the tracking issue once it's there.
Okay. So yeah, let's try to create a umbrella tracking issue and then we can maybe create PRs for each item in that umbrella tracking issue. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next one is update release manager handbooks to document process related to OBS. This was an item from 129. I discussed it with Marco during the 129 release cycle. And Marco was assigned to this item. I can follow up with Marco, But Grace, Kat, if you do you want to follow up with Marco on this? This is basically we started adopting OBS. Uh, I think 128, 127, 128.
Yeah.
Even during 129 we had problems, and nobody had the knowledge to really troubleshoot those problems other than the people who really worked with the OBS team, um, which is Marco and I think few other people from the SIG release leadership itself. Uh,
Yeah, so it would be
and none of
Marco and Puerco. Um,
Mhm.
and I think also Carlos. So yeah, assign me to bother them about it because none of them are in this meeting. And I haven't heard an update on OBS in the SIG release meetings in a hot minute. So yeah, assign me to get them updates. Marco is on vacation right now though.
Cool. I will. I have. I'll. I'll fix that. Cool. So
Yeah.
I think the link to the tracking issue is also there. If you need. Uh, I don't think there is anything more on this. It's just pure documentation of whatever we know about the OBS setup right now. Anyone wants to add anything on this item before we move on? If not, the next one is follow up on when to freeze kept templates and how to communicate changes, automate versioning. This is basically can be summarized to kept versioning, and there has been a lot of discussion around it. I think in parts in every release cycle. We have, I think Sriram, you are working on it, right? With enhancement sub project with
Yeah,
Siga.
so I had posted a couple of updates in the like the original issue. Uh, I still need to like follow up with Kirsten on this, but I know that Kirsten has a tracking board for this, where like last time we talked, she had mentioned that like she'll set up all the different issues so that we can start working on them. But I'm not sure if that's done yet. And this is also something that I was planning to do towards the end of this release after code freeze. And yeah, probably we can divide the work between the shadows. Like I know that Tyler had expressed interest in who is one of the enhancement shadows. I'm not sure. I don't think he's on this call. He said he'll be traveling, but he had expressed interest in working on this as well. And we had some discussion around that. So probably we can make some progress on this after code freeze. And the enhancements of project meeting also happens every second Thursday. So there is a meeting which is supposed to happen next Thursday, and we were Tyler and I were planning to join that and like, get to know what the updates are.
Cool. I think what we can do here is if you already know what are the action items, like what are the things that needs to be done from your discussion with Custom already, maybe you can document all of those things, the known items right now in the tracking issue itself, and then maybe anyone who have the bandwidth, including you and Tywin, can take those items. Do you need any help with like anything is blocked here and you need help with that?
Not really. This is the part of the work which lies more on the enhancements of project side rather than the release team side of things.
Mhm.
So I guess what I would need to know now is like basically what the scope of the work is. So all the work that I had done was to create like a basically add like the checking the version of the kept template as a step in the CI. But I know that what Kirsten and Bob and Mark, I think we had all discussed this in the last like 130 final retro call, and the scope of the actual pageant issues like much more than that, like actually like bringing about like like a version and keeping a template of keeping a like right now the kept template doesn't have a version, but adding that to the document itself. But the part that I had started working on was like doesn't involve the kept having the version number itself. I was just comparing the headers and making sure if all the PRR questions are present and answered in each kept. So I would need to discuss that with Kristen. After that, I can like break everything down into issues.
Thank you. Anyone have anything to talk about, like on this particular item right now? Okay, if not, I have one. Sriram, how about we document everything that you just mentioned right now, and maybe more details of your discussion with the enhancement subproject, and like a small documentation in a Google Doc. So we have the discussion documented so that everyone who is going to pick up some work on this particular item, they have the context with them. Uh, and then we could also do a round of review to better understand the scope. If you need help with documentation, maybe we can pull people from release team, because eventually this is going to help people opting in during a release cycle. So release team is also very much relevant here. That's my suggestion. What, CAD Grace, do you want to add anything here?
No,
Cool. So Shriram, does that sound fine? Like, okay to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Maybe I'll just add that as a okay. Any other items? I don't see on the table here. I have picked up every running item from 130, but if anyone feels there is something they have been working from the previous cycles, please feel free to add in the table now, and we can revisit them after the below items. So let's start with what went well in 131. Angelos. Angelos, you are not audible. Uh, I
yeah,
can hear you.
Speaking a language that we don't understand.
it's just making robot noises.
I think if
So,
it's a wired connection, then the aux cable or something like that is loose. If it's a wired connection.
mhm. Maybe if you are trying to troubleshoot that, I can read the your comment there, and if you have anything by that time you are on the mic, feel free to jump in. So Angelo says, excellent work from release signal team, much more structured, focused, and knowledgeable, and using the tools at their disposal, example triage effectively. And I also agree with that. We have started using all the tools at our disposal for the release signal team very, very nicely. I think triage was what I remember, Vyom, you started talking about in 129, like talking very actively about in 129. I believe we did a great job in 130, and now 131, we are doing equally great job. Thank you. Angelos, do you want to add anything there? And if that was a remark, maybe we can move on to the next one. I'll take that as a yes. Cool. Matteo, next one is from you.
Yes.
Shadow orientation. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say that the shadow orientation was really, really useful. Like that's the first time I got onboarded ever, both on the job and on an open source project. So really nice to have someone guiding you for the first steps, understanding like how the team is composed. I think it's really useful. Of course, there was a minor bump, which is we added after meeting the rest of the team. So I think it should be shifted, and usually it is shifted before we join our team. But aside from that, super useful.
Thank you. I remember the feedback right after the call. The feedback was around organizing these shadow orientation call before the orientation calls in the sub
Yeah,
teams itself, because a
yeah,
lot of the stuff we share during the general shadow orientation call is kind of a repetition from sub team orientation call if that happens later. Yeah, I will definitely pass that feedback to the next EA, and maybe we can document it if it's not documented properly. This cycle and maybe like previous cycle, sometimes it, I can talk about 131, it happened late and I shared with you because of
yeah.
we kind of started the release cycle late. But I think this is a great feedback. We'll make sure we do it first thing as soon as shadows are selected. Thank you. Anything else on this one?
Nope.
Cool. The next one is also from you.
Yeah, so the next one is really just a shout out to my team. I think we were really collaborative, and it's been really useful to have a lead that really is a guide for us. And like whenever we have questions and stuff, we had tons of questions, especially me. So yeah, I really loved being part of the team, and the fact that we could like exchange tasks with no issues. So that's also really important. I can only talk for comms here, but I think that every other shadow probably can say the same for their own team.
I'm really happy personally to hear that about comms team. Comms dogs have struggled a lot for many release cycles now. So it's really great to hear that comms is having good time during the release cycle. Cool. Are we good to move on the next one?
Yeah.
Perfect. Very small item from me. We started APAC release meetings during the re- general release meeting times, release meeting days, which is Wednesdays. I think those are working really nicely. We have, I believe, the maximum number of participants on any APAC call and release team meetings, any release cycle I have been part of. Uh, we had kind of an average of 8 to 9 participants every call, which I believe is good for the very first initiating release cycle with this pattern of APAC meetings. So successful APAC meetings this cycle. And thank you everyone who made it possible and who provided feedback to make this happen. Nothing from me on this. Anyone wants to add anything on this? I know Amit is also on the call.
Yeah, I would like to add that it's really awesome seeing that APAC meetings have become more of a thing, very active meetings, and it starts right from the beginning of the cycle. This is especially so being based out of Australia, where the timings are more conducive to be more actively involved in the release meeting rather than getting up at 3 a.m. on a weekly basis. So I'm really glad seeing that APAC is a thing which would most probably help in more Pacific region or Oceania region being more involved in the release team as well.
Thank you. I can say this was possible just because of those feedbacks. So thank you. Next one is from Sriram. Sriram, I want to go ahead.
Yeah, hey, my internet is a bit wonky, so forgive me if I like break off in between. Yeah, so huge shout out to everyone in the enhancements team. So this time, everybody was so active that by the enhancements freeze party day, we only had like 8 keps which were still at risk, and everything else, all the other keps we had like followed up with all the kep authors and made sure that they are tracked in time. And currently we have 2 more weeks for the code freeze, and we've completed like an initial round of outreach to all the keps, and we're like pretty confident that we'll be able to like get most of the work done before the code freeze party itself. Yeah, this year's like this releases enhancements freeze party call was pretty light because of that, since we had like very low number of keps to still follow up with. Yeah, everybody has been like working really hard, and I just wanted to appreciate everyone.
Thank you. I agree. We did not have a adventurous enhancements freeze party this time. That's good. Again, huge shout out from me as well to all the shadows and enhancement shadows this time. Um, Next one. Oh, anyone wants to add anything on this item before we move on? If not, Princess, are you on the call?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm on the call.
Yep. Hey.
Hi,
Yep.
everyone. So, what I wanted to say is also in line with what Sriram has said. This time all the shadows were hands-on. They were very active when it came to reaching out to all the CAP owners as well as SIG leads with respect to deadlines. It's unfortunate that everyone didn't make the deadline. However, I think everyone actually did a good job. And they are still doing a good job as well. So shout out to all the Docs shadows. Thank you.
Thank you, all the dog shadows, and thank you to you, Princess, for uh, making sure we were able to provide every help that was needed for the dogs team. I know you did a great job singing in time to time with Drew. That's great. Yeah, thank you for continuously doing that. Anyone wants to add anything on this item before we move on? If not, Abby, over to you.
Hi. Yes. I just wanted to give a big shout out to the Calm Shadows. Everyone's been doing a really great job, being really engaged and really supportive across the whole team. And we've had 22 keps opt into doing a feature blog, which takes a lot of work in outreach and following up and tracking the keps. So huge shout out to them, and it's been a really great time so far. So looking forward to the second half of the release.
Right. Any good news from the comms is like so good to hear. Anyone wants to add anything to the shout outs?
I would like just to to
Yep.
say thank you. It's my first time doing the shadowing commons, and it is already big experience. I love the enthusiasm that have every members of the team that always trying to collaborate, even if I don't know things. They are putting a lot of details so I can understand everything. So a big shout out for the team too.
Yeah, I would say that's really the best way to do the shadowing. Just talking a lot, asking a lot of questions, getting all the help from your, not just from your lead, role lead, but also from all your co-shadows. I think it's a great thing. So thank you for doing that. And again, huge shout outs to all the com shadows. Do we have anything on this item more to add? Not? Vyom, or do you?
Yeah, so just a quick shout out to all the release signal shadows. We have tracked 33 flakes so far, and the release cycle is not over yet. And just for comparison, in the previous cycles, without using triage and other things that we have improved on, we used to track about 15 flakes on an average, and 15 is the upper limit. On some cycles, it was like 7 or 8 only. So just a huge shout out to all the shadows. They have been working really hard. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Great work from all the release signal shadows who have been doing great job at, like, from the right from the beginning of the cycle. And I think you have mentioned it somewhere. I remember that release signal is one of the roles which is not where work is not required in bursts, but it's like throughout the cycle. So a lot of work from all the shadows. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Do we have anything more to add here on this item? If not, over to you, Nina.
Yep. In line with this trend, shout out to the release note shadows. I feel like everyone's been very involved in the release, asking a lot of good questions, super involved in leaving reviews, which is great, and like very persistent in working through issues that have arisen with Krell. So yeah, so great job, everyone.
Yeah, great job at the recent PR reviews. I saw we made a record of 300 plus comments on a release notes PR. That's amazing and good. Round of previous. Shout out to all the release note shadows. And with that, shout out to everyone. Thank you for doing great work so far. And we look forward to more great work throughout the cycle. Anything to add on this item?
Can I try once more? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Excellent. I got it. Okay. Yeah, I just want to echo the sentiment that I really appreciate, and I really want you all to feel very proud of yourselves. This is not happening by chance. This is your good work, giving results. So thank you all. It's been a great release. When the team is getting picked, there is this, it's not clear. You don't know everyone. That's fine. You have to trust them a bit. So seeing all of the teams getting together and being able to trust each other and work with each other that well, it's been great to witness for the whole cycle so far. And I want to thank you for this. And yeah, feel proud of yourselves.
So true. Thank you, Angelos. With that, let's move to the next section here. What could have gone better in 131? And Angelos, first item is from you.
Yep. So the first thing I wanted to talk about again, it's sort of a side effect of having a great release signal team, especially in the early stages of the cycle, where there were lots of flakes, especially flakes that came up around and near the times of the release cuts. And the process for everyone who is not aware, when there is a release cut, the CI signal team, the release signal team is supposed to give a go or no go signal. And this is essentially if there are any open flakes or any blocking flakes, then you need the relevant SIG node or SIG scheduling or SIG API machinery or SIG network, any of those to chime in and say, yes, this is a known bug, or yes, we are working on this, or yes, this is nothing to worry about, or yes, this is actually a regression and we cannot have the release with that not fixed. So what could have been better this time? It's that these replies from the SIG leads sometimes took a bit longer than what we would want to, and yeah, so in the spirit that these should be actionable, again, first of all, it makes sense. It's an open source project. Yes, we cannot, try to make you all very nervous or very anxious or, not feel comfortable with their time. Perhaps my suggestion would be, but I'm happy to hear feedback or other opinions. If early in the cycle, once the schedule is mostly known, we could share them early with the SIG leads and say, okay, around that time of the week, please have someone around who will be able to say, yes, this is a blocker, or no, this is not a blocker. And if they cannot do that, then they can at least, raise it internally and get an answer sooner rather than like 1 week later, for example. So this is, it happened, I think 2 times with Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. So I think we can do better there, because there's also, this translates to, nerves and let's say some stress on the release managers as well and the release signal teams. And we would like to not have that if possible. So opinions, thoughts, ideas.
Yeah, assign me an action item for this because there are one or two SIGs that are worse about this than others. And it is a consistent problem. It's not just this release, and it's also not just release signal that it affects, it's a problem up against all deadlines. So I have already brought this to the leadership from one SIG who had an issue right up against a deadline. And the solution for them is we're asking them to have like a triage on-call rotation. Other SIGs do have that in place and don't have this kind of problem around deadlines because there is somebody whose job it is to address things when they come up. So I'm handling this and Grace is handling this. We're taking this to the SIG leads and chairs that are like struggling with it a little bit more, but we are suggesting that they have a triage rotation.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Kat.
You're welcome.
I think this could be also an item we could add to the release team board and track there. Well, cool. Anyone else wants to add anything here? If not, thank you. Angelos, the next one is also from you.
Yep. So for the second one, so when the time for a new release cycle comes up, essentially it's up to the release lead to find the schedule, and the guidance for this has mostly been, well, for me at least, take the schedule of the previous release and try to mix and match dates and pray that no one is very angry at you. Um, so yeah, what happened as a result of this this time? So we did this. We had the same discussion. It was approved. It was merged, and we said, yeah, that's the schedule. But then it came up that code freeze was actually very early. So after the discussion, we moved it 2 weeks later, and it was very well received because it is very important time for people to be able to actually work on the code, come up with good tests, verify that things are working, and they're not rushing to let's say broken implementations or bugs or any of that. So I think here a suggestion would be we should probably have some guidance around this, not copy paste whatever Kat did on 130, but rather try to be more mindful about what are the important dates. Well, the phases when you the release lead will probably know the important phases of the release, but how they interact with each other. And I also see more items later where moving the code freeze was mostly okay for the code, but it has knock-on effects on other important dates. So we should be more conscious of that and try to improve this. Kat, I think you are already working on this.
I am, yeah. I'm already writing guidance for this, and just so for two things to make you feel better. Looking at the release schedule for 129 and working around KubeCon and public holidays is what I did. I think that is what most leads do. And also that public comment period before the release schedule is firm is so that the community who have different contexts than you do can catch issues like this. So if code freeze being that short was really that much of an issue, it should have been caught. Somebody else should have noticed that. One of the SIG leads affected should have noticed that because they are supposed to check the release schedule in that like notice period before it's firm. So not your fault. You are doing what I did and probably what every lead before us did for a while. But I am writing a guidance document that I'm going to add to the release lead handbook, and I will send you a draft of it when it's done.
Excellent. And this also leads me to my final point, which I forgot about. So maybe, so what we typically do, I think, is we ask SIG Release and SIG Gates Infra, who are mostly knowledgeable about this. Maybe we can include more and specifically ask them to review the schedule and give an opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can add one item, one note here. I think we do call out all the leads and everyone, basically an open call for people to comment and provide feedback on the release team schedule. But it's maybe earlier during the release cycle, everyone is just kind of wrapping up from the previous release cycle that nobody looks at that PR
It's true.
writing
Nobody
time.
actually looks at it.
Yeah.
But they should, because otherwise this happens, right? Like,
Yeah, it felt like the issues that were raised this cycle could have easily been raised in that PR. And
yeah,
we had similar issues raised during that during the discussion in 131 scheduled PR.
yeah.
So one suggestion I have is maybe just to be proactive and make sure we do our part. We can send a small note or email to the leads at the rate mailing list, where every lead chair TL would get that notice that here is the release team schedule PR, and if you have any comments, maybe we can follow some lazy consensus kind of thing, like one week time, or I don't know, X days time. Within that time, please comment. If not, this is our day when we will merge that PR, something like that, which every SIG does for any important announcements, like a lazy consensus of some X days. Maybe we can do that and
Yeah.
inform leads through that mailing list. And then nobody can complain about this part, at least, that
Yeah.
they were not aware that there was a PR and discussion happening. So, just a suggestion. Anyone wants to add anything on this item? Any more helpful suggestions to improve our release schedule process? If not, thank you, Kat, for starting the document. I think that would be great. Again, yes, I also did the same thing, took the previous schedule and
Yeah.
started working from there.
Yeah, I think
That's the
that like
only guidance we had
it's just like
so far.
compounded an issue over time, and things have like slipped around from where they were originally intended to be, just from like apparently a couple of years of leads doing exactly what all three of us did.
Yeah. Which reminded me one more thing. I think from the discussion this time when code freeze issue was raised, there was some context shared around why the test freezes should be maybe a day after code freeze or should be close to that. Such context, I don't have any historical knowledge about that. Why milestones are scheduled where they are scheduled during a release cycle.
I'm gathering some
I
of that context
think,
and putting it in the doc, so it's like easier to understand rather than just being a hard and fast like these things need to be X what weeks apart.
Yeah.
You know, that way it's easier to like, if you do need to move something, you understand the implications of moving something, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all that context was helpful to understand why people were asking for it, but we did not have that context to make a decision from ourselves. So, thank you for the guiding document. Before we move to the next one, anyone wants to add anything on this? If not, over to you, Matteo.
Oh, well, so the major teams thing for comms has been a bit confusing initially around like we thought it was a different thing probably. And as Kat said yesterday, I think, or the day before, on the SIG Docs call, we need to rename, rephrase, rebuild that major team section of the blog. So of the release blog. So probably it has to be something a bit different. It can even be like a responsibility, in my opinion, of comps directly. Like we know all the caps, we track them. We might have a sense of what can be a big item. Let's say in this release, like customize maybe gets out of kubectl. That could be a big thing. We can actually think of including it, and any change that really disrupts or requires users to do migrations or anything like the in-tree code removal. That's also a thing. So I don't know, like just a proposal that maybe can be something that comms does, since we monitor most of the changes.
Anyone has any comments? Kat, do you want to add anything on it? I see you pointed it in the first place.
Oh, sorry. I was having a whole nother conversation at the same time. But yeah, so with the major themes thing, that is something that's going to change over time. For those in the call who don't know, as a term, major themes is an artifact of the way we used to do things in the release before we had release notes. And now we have release notes. So the term major themes is just kind of chilling, and it doesn't make sense, and it's confusing to anybody who has not been around for 20 million years. Some of these responsibilities have been moved to comms. They were part of the release notes team last cycle and every cycle before. I would like to do away with the term major themes. The blog does not have to include a major themes section. It recently hasn't included a major themes section because that phrase is so confusing. So I would like to see that term go away. We just can't do it all at once. Some of the job responsibilities are on comms now, and probably next cycle or the cycle after that, we'll see the rest of release notes responsibilities move over to maybe docs, and the term release or major themes will go away. I see Abby has her hand up though.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up and say that, yes, this is something that we feels very different than what we are doing now. Like it feels like an old piece of responsibilities. So for our part on comms, we're doing it exactly as it was done as part of release notes, but it is a new, layered on responsibility. So included with our deadlines for the other blog related comms things, it feels a little stuck in, layered on top. So we're just doing it as it was, but I definitely would appreciate, definitely would like to change it sooner, like you mentioned, either the next release or the release after that. I think it doesn't quite fit with how we do things now. So however feedback you want for changing this going forward, definitely let us know where we can put it. It just feels a little bit wonky. So
you can absolutely send that feedback straight to me. I personally am a proponent of doing away with the whole thing. I don't think it's useful.
I lean towards agreeing with you, and and to Mateo's point, like I think it's hard for us on the comms team to know what is important in a release. So that's why we have been relying on it from SIGs, but it's just another thing to get feedback from the SIGs about. And it usually comes very late, and it usually is a very big afterthought. So yeah, so for sure. Okay, so we will work on putting that feedback for you to you.
You can honestly just get a call with me. I'm very easy to get a hold of.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you for raising this point, Mateo.
It's probably like breaking changes. That could be something, but it's already there. Like we do it for every cap. If there's any change.
Release notes has that responsibility though. So that, like that's part of the release notes.
Yeah. So just repetition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for breaking changes, like I think we had a thread looking at what we're going in Alpha 1 and Alpha 2, and basically like I just looked at releases that got generated and commented. So it does seem like there's a lot of overlap because the same information's in two places.
Okay, while I try to take notes, anyone wants to add anything here? If not, thank you everyone for the discussion here. Abby, I think you have an action item to follow with Kat on this, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. If there is nothing more on this item, next one again is from you, Mother.
Yeah, sorry, I spam a lot. Release schedule, when we changed the code freeze date, that hasn't impacted every deadline of comms, but only some, like one at least. But I think that probably it's more interconnected than we think, especially since the SIGs, as we said before, as Angelo said before, they typically reply like around the deadline or just slightly before. So it's very difficult to get some of the information from some SIGs, not every SIG, of course. So that can be something to keep in mind. Like if we change a date, probably everything else has to shift, even if I don't know how easy it is to shift the design, the release date, like 13th of August. Is that written in stone? Can that change without like breaking someone's leg or something? So, I mean, it really depends on how rigid is the schedule in that sense.
I can add, it's not rigid, but it's not that flexible as well. How? So we don't change the final release date unless it's a pressing problem. Could be a security issue, could be like we really got a no-go from release signal team. So something like we have code breaking and we know that it's breaking, it's a regression, known regression. Some recently I know we delayed the release because of Go security patches. So things like those can delay the release by a day or two, or let's say by a week, depending on how much time is needed. But do we allow changing the release date otherwise? I have not seen those cases.
Yeah, maybe some deadlines, let's say for comms and maybe even docs, they are not that strict. Like they don't cause the release to really shift, but they may cause like a blog post to go out like 3 days after, which I don't think it's the biggest deal, but maybe I'm wrong.
Uh, I'll just continue for one more minute. No, I think you're not feeling wrong. I know Cat did a great job with enforcing docs, exception requests. Just, I think the intention there was to make people take comms, docs, basically the documentation work more seriously than they do right now. So anything that we can do to make people take docs, comms, deadlines, these milestones more seriously is very much welcome. Uh,
I was
Yeah.
thinking it can be even part of the cap itself. Like you have a cap, you have the PR open, it has to have docs already
So
and media blog, yes or no.
that's already true for docs. So if a CAP has user-facing changes, even if that user-facing change is just a feature flag being documented, they must have it documented in order for that CAP to be considered complete, which is why I was so aggressive about enforcing the docs deadline, because technically, if they require docs and do not have them, we can yank their enhancement from the release. So I do not want to allow any degree of flexibility on the docs freeze deadline. If they're going to miss the docs freeze deadline, they have to file an exception request, just like if they were going to miss enhancements or code freeze. If they're denied that and they can't get it through the door, or they're granted an exception request and they still don't make it, yank their enhancement. I'm not willing to be flexible on that because it's when we allow them to treat the docs deadline like it's soft as we have in the previously, it creates a huge amount of extra stress for the docs sub-team, for the comms sub-team, and for SIG docs. It's like way more impactful. Instead, no, you got to force them to take it seriously.
I was more like, even more like, let's add another constraint on blog. Like even saying, no, I'm not writing a blog for this one. Just say it right away. Like, you don't have to.
I think we can let them, like, if they're late on a docs deadline or on a blog deadline, there's a lot of flexibility with those, like a ton. The hard deadlines for the blog aren't until after the release because we don't start publishing the release blogs until then. So for those, we can afford to be really squishy. Like it's we would still prefer that they get things on time, obviously, but you can be squishy with blog deadlines. Except for the release blog.
Yeah, I meant like the availability. Like, are you willing to write any time a blog, yes or no? Because if you know already, no, I'm not writing any blog, then okay, like just say it straight away. So we don't even follow up as comms multiple times on the issue, pinging you. Yeah, that was more the thing.
Okay. Abby, what's up?
Yes, hello. I just wanted to say yes. Squishy docs deadline. Wait, I forgot what I was going to say. Not that squash deadline. Release blog, Jess, we can be a little bit more squishy. The change to code freeze makes it a little bit harder, only because a little bit more concerning from my perspective, only because we typically get a lot of things after code freeze, and a lot of our deadlines butt up right like the next day after code freeze. So we're trying to be a little bit more proactive. We will be proactive about asking folks to complete their blogs. But right to your point, Kat, it is a little bit squishier of deadlines, except for the release blog, which needs to go out. I had another point and I completely forgot what it was. Okay, it's not coming back to me, so that's all that I had to say now for now. Okay.
I mean, if you recall that, can you document that in the discussion under this item? And thank you for the discussion. We are 3 minutes into this meeting, the closure of this meeting. Anyone wants to add anything on this topic? If not, Nina, do you think we can cover that in 3 minutes, or we should move it to the next call?
Yeah, I think this is a more open-ended question. So I think we can mention it now, and if people have ideas, we should bring it back in the next retro.
Cool.
But basically, to recap, I've noticed that a lot of the alpha release notes PRs have a lot of like comments, either because there's a lot of PRs going in, or because like people are more engaged at the beginning of the cycle, or there are just more like places to trip up because, you know, Krell upgrades, like new things go in. So historically, we've had one release notes team member own a specific patch release. And I think overall it's worked pretty well, but I do think it's kind of in balance sometimes, where people at the beginning of the cycle have a lot more work and a lot more pressure than people at the end of the cycle. I don't know if this is like true for all releases or just the previous ones I've been a part of. But maybe there's a better way of dividing the work. Like, I know it's kind of limited to how Krell operates, because you have to like run the command on your computer, and like it saves a session on your computer. But maybe there's a better way of kind of, you know, spreading the work out throughout the release. And the other thing is, I think part of this is because there's no feedback loop to the original like code PR author. Some of the release notes we get are like pretty badly formatted, and we have to, you know, edit them for grammar, spelling, and really minor things that like maybe it's just the authors aren't aware that this is going to go in the like official, like, you know, release notes like release. So I think those two things, like maybe dividing the work, if there's a better way, instead of having like one person have ownership, or if we like that approach. And the second thing is like maybe there's other things we can do to make the work like slightly less during the actual, you know, review process. And like if other people have ideas, like feel free to add them to the list as well.
I think we can start the discussion right now if anyone have any ideas on this. But very quickly, I have something. Can we document this concern, like the whole concerning situation with the release notes, shadows having more load, the ones in the
Yeah.
beginning? Can we document that in an issue so that we can run this discussion before on that tracking issue, before we wait for the next item as well, since this already shared?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll do that then.
Maybe we can also raise this during one of the, at least like point to that tracking issue during one of the regular release team meetings. So if anyone have any ideas or anything to add on that, they can do that in the tracking issue. Then we can follow up definitely in the next retro meeting.
Yeah, I do feel that to a certain extent we can automate some of the quick touch-ups for the release notes. I think we have already discussed it, Nina, and rest of the release team. There are things such as the beginning capitalization, the full stop at the end, the automatic adding the, I think Satyam is working on a dictionary list so that we can automatically add tildes, backticks to whatever predefined terms are there.
Yep, I think those are all great like automation improvements for limiting our work, but it doesn't like give the PR author any feedback on like this release note like needs some edits. So like maybe they're like in the like the template when you actually write a release note, we can have a link to like a style guide or something like that to make sure people are aware that this is actually going to get published. Maybe that already exists and people still aren't doing it, but
Got it.
yeah.
How about in the PR map, along with making the changes, which we do, we also tag the respective author. We can automate that part too in the PR map, where automatically the author of the original PR gets tagged. So that way, at least they are aware that these changes are happening.
Yeah, I actually really like that. That's a good idea.
Okay, we are past time, so I will stop the discussion on this item at this point. But if we have anything, let's please document everything in that tracking issue so we don't lose anything. Also link that tracking issue to the Slack thread. I think we started a Slack thread discussing automation work and any automation items that we have already figured out. Maybe somebody can start doing a POC around that, the shadows, current shadows, past shadows, or anyone else from the release team. So let's do that. Let's collect all the action items that we have already figured out might be useful for release notes, and maybe people can start taking them. With that, thank you everyone for joining the call today and for keeping the discussion really great active. I think we have action items for mostly all the items we discussed today. The rest ones that we did not touch during this call will be moved to the next retro meeting, and I'll share the details of the next retro part 2 in the coming weeks. And if required, we'll also have the part 3 as well. Any last minute items that you have and you wanted to discuss today, please keep adding them below the items that we discussed today, and we'll start from there in the next meeting. With that, I will stop the recording for this call.